All right, so how do you tell a visionary from a con artist?
Yeah.
You know, in a world where charisma and controversy kind of go hand in hand,
Yeah.
it can be tough to separate the real deal from the fakes.
Yeah, and that's what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Today we're looking at Brittney Griner,
Oh, it's a good one.
a WNBA superstar,
Sure.
two-time Olympic gold medalist,
Yeah.
and someone who spent almost a year detained in Russia.
Under some very, very controversial circumstances.
We're going to try to unpack all of that.
We've got news articles, we've got biographical info,
Right.
we even have some commentary on her career and her activism.
Ah.
By the end, you'll have a much clearer picture of this really complex figure.
So is Brittney Griner a true visionary using her platform to make a difference, or is she more about self-promotion? Grifter or gifted?
Well, to understand her present, we really need to go back to her past.
Okay.
Let's rewind the clock, see where it all began.
Right.
Brittney Griner was born the youngest of 4 children in Houston, Texas.
Ew.
Her father, a Vietnam vet and a sheriff,
Oh, wow.
instilled a sense of discipline.
Uh-huh.
Her mother, a stay-at-home mom, provided a really supportive environment.
A little bit of structure and a little bit of love.
Exactly the kind of foundation you might expect for a future star.
And speaking of stars, we've all seen that incredible video of her dunking in high school.
Oh yeah, that video went viral for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not every day you see a young woman dominating on the court like that.
Nope.
You could just tell she was destined for greatness.
Yeah, and that raw talent is exactly what took her to Baylor University.
Mm-hmm.
Double majored in basketball and education.
She didn't just play at Baylor.
Yeah.
She absolutely dominated.
Right.
Led her team to an NCAA championship in 2012, and she won every major award a college player could win.
Name them.
The Naismith, the AP Player of the Year.
Wow.
I mean, it's an incredible track record.
Yeah, but even with all that success, there were already some signs of a more complicated personality.
Oh, absolutely. There was that infamous incident where she punched an opposing player during a game,
Oh, yeah.
broke her nose.
Yikes.
It really raised questions about her temperament.
Yeah.
Could she control her emotions under pressure?
It kind of cast a shadow over everything she'd accomplished.
Yeah, made people wonder if that aggression on the court was maybe a sign of something deeper.
Right. And then a few years later, in 2015, she was arrested along with her then-wife, Glory Johnson, for domestic violence.
Yeah.
They both got suspended from the WNBA for 7 games.
Right.
But that incident really left a lasting mark on her image.
It did. It's hard to reconcile those kinds of incidents with the image of a role model athlete.
But at the same time, her professional career just kept getting bigger and bigger.
It did. In 2013, she was drafted first overall by the Phoenix Mercury, and she quickly became one of the WNBA's most dominant players.
And she's one of only 9 women over 7 feet tall to ever play in the league.
That's a serious height advantage. No wonder she's such a force.
And she didn't limit herself to the U.S., did she?
Oh, no. She also played for several international teams during the WNBA offseason,
Okay.
including in Russia. Wow.
And let's not forget those 2 Olympic gold medals with Team USA.
2016 and 2020.
Got it.
So on one hand, you have this incredibly talented athlete achieving amazing things.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there are these incidents that suggest some serious lapses in judgment.
It really is the classic grifter or gifted dilemma.
Is this someone who just lets her emotions get the best of her?
Or are these isolated incidents blown out of proportion by the media?
I guess that's what we're here to find out.
Exactly.
We're going to have to dig a little deeper.
Yep. You know, it's fascinating how often we see this clash between exceptional talent and questionable choices.
Yeah.
Especially in the world of professional sports.
It's like a Shakespearean drama playing out on a global stage.
It really is. And just when you think you've got Brittney Griner figured out,
Right.
she throws a curveball.
That's a good way to put it.
And speaking of unpredictable moves,
Yeah.
let's talk about her activism.
Okay.
She's been really vocal about social justice issues.
Yeah, especially LGBTQ plus rights.
Right. She came out as gay back in 2013. Yep.
And she hasn't been shy about using her platform to advocate for equality and against bullying.
And in 2014, she even published a memoir called In My Skin, where she opened up about her personal experiences.
That was a powerful move.
It was.
Sharing those very personal struggles resonated with a lot of people.
Especially young athletes facing similar challenges.
Right. It showed a different side of her, a depth of character that went beyond basketball.
It definitely added another layer to her public persona.
It did.
But then in 2020, she took a stance that really ignited a firestorm.
Oh, you're talking about when she called for the WNBA to stop playing the national anthem before games.
That's the one.
Bold move.
She was protesting police brutality and racial injustice.
Aligning herself with that growing movement for social change.
And it definitely got people talking.
It did. Some praised her for taking a stand.
All right.
Others accused her of being unpatriotic.
Yeah, disrespectful to the country.
It made you wonder, was she truly committed to the cause?
Right.
Or was it more about her own brand?
Yeah, can someone be a fierce advocate for social change and also someone who's super image conscious?
It's a tricky balance.
For sure.
And for Brittney Griner, this tightrope walk was about to take a very unexpected turn.
Yeah, amidst all these achievements and controversies, 2022 really changed everything.
That's when she was arrested and detained in Russia.
It happened just 1 week before Russia invaded Ukraine.
Talk about bad timing.
Yeah, it turned a personal ordeal into this huge international incident.
She was detained at Sheremetyevo International Airport for possessing vape cartridges containing hash oil.
Which is illegal in Russia.
Very much so.
1 minute she's a WNBA star, the next she's in a Russian prison cell.
It was a shocking turn of events, and her case immediately became this focal point in the already strained relationship between the U.S. and Russia.
The U.S. government even classified her as wrongfully detained.
Saying she was basically a political pawn.
Her pretrial detention was extended multiple times.
Yeah, they limited her access to U.S. officials.
And her wife, Sheremetyevo Griner, was desperately pleading for help from the U.S. government.
It was like a real-life thriller playing out on the world stage.
Totally. And then in July of 2022, her trial began.
And on July 7th, she pleaded guilty to the drug charges.
Saying that packing the vape cartridges had been unintentional.
Right. Some people saw that plea as a strategic move to speed things up.
Hoping for a prisoner swap.
Maybe.
But even with the guilty plea, she was still found guilty on August 4th.
And sentenced to 9 years in a penal colony?
9 years, that's a really long time.
It seemed to confirm everyone's suspicions that she was being used as leverage.
It definitely fueled the debate about whether the U.S. was doing enough to get her back.
And then came the transfer to a penal colony in Mordovia.
Which is known for its brutal conditions.
Yeah, in her memoir, Coming Home, she describes it as a really grim place.
Blood-stained mattresses, limited toilet paper, freezing temperatures.
It was a far cry from her life as a celebrated athlete.
And through it all, public opinion remained totally divided.
Yeah, some saw her as a victim caught in the middle of this geopolitical tug-of-war.
Others thought she was just reckless and irresponsible.
Thinking she was above the law.
So many different perspectives.
It was really hard to say who was right.
And then, after months and months of intense negotiations, a prisoner swap was finally arranged.
It was a pretty controversial decision.
It was.
Some people hailed it as a victory for American diplomacy.
Others saw it as a dangerous concession.
Like we were giving in to Russia's demands.
Right. And it brought the whole grifter or gifted debate back to the forefront.
Had the U.S. just caved to free a privileged athlete?
Or were they just doing their duty to protect a citizen who was wrongfully detained?
Tough questions.
No easy answers.
And it brings us right back to that core question.
Mm-hmm.
How do we separate the genuine change makers from the manipulators?
Especially when you factor in the power of celebrity.
Right, and social media and the constantly shifting world of international relations.
It's a minefield out there.
It really is. And in Brittney Griner's case, the lines are really blurry.
So where do we go from here? How do we balance her talent and her activism with her mistakes and all the controversies surrounding her release?
That's what we'll explore as we delve into the aftermath of her release and the lasting impact of her story.
It's hard to believe we've already covered so much ground with Brittney Griner.
It's a fascinating story, isn't it?
From her rise in the WNBA to her activism to her time in Russia.
I mean, we've seen glimpses of extraordinary talent, unwavering determination, a willingness to fight for what she believes in, but then there are those moments of recklessness
Or judgment.
a disconnect between her actions and the consequences.
And even after everything that's happened, public opinion is still all over the place.
You've got people who see her as a victim.
Right, a pawn in some big political game.
And then you have those who see her as a privileged athlete who got special treatment.
Someone who thinks she's above the law.
The whole prisoner swap really intensified that debate.
It made us question everything.
Yeah, like the value we place on human life.
The role of celebrities in international affairs. How far governments will go to protect their own citizens.
It's a lot to unpack.
I'm honestly more conflicted than ever.
I get it.
How do you weigh her positive contributions against her mistakes?
Right.
It feels impossible to draw a clear line.
I think that's the thing with these really complex figures.
Yeah.
You can't neatly categorize them as heroes or villains, good or bad.
I mean, Brittney Griner is just like most of us, a mix of strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely good intentions mixed with questionable choices.
So where does that leave us? Grifter or gifted? Can we even answer that?
I don't think there is a simple answer.
Ah,
And maybe that's okay, you know? Maybe the goal isn't to label her,
right.
but to understand her.
You see the nuances of her story.
Right, to acknowledge the challenges she's faced.
I guess it's a good reminder that the world isn't black and white.
It's so much more complicated than that.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
We all have things we're not proud of.
But it's how we learn from those mistakes that really matters.
How we use our platforms.
Right? No matter how big or small, to make a difference.
And Brittney Griner's story is definitely not over.
She's back in the WNBA. She's talking about what she went through. She's still fighting for social justice.
It'll be fascinating to see where she goes from here.
Will she keep pushing the boundaries? Will she use her platform to advocate for change in a more thoughtful way?
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
One thing is for sure, though.
What's that?
Her story has sparked a conversation that goes way beyond basketball.
What kind of conversation?
About accountability privilege, international relations, even forgiveness.
Those are conversations we definitely need to be having.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm leaving this deep dive with more questions than answers.
That's how it usually goes.
But I think that's the beauty of exploring these complicated lives.
It makes us think critically about the world.
Challenges our assumptions,
Exactly.
broadens our understanding of the human experience.
That's what grifter or gifted is all about.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Until next time.